Welcome to Unit 401089, Childbirth in the Australian Context. I've got a little welcome video here for the unit, but it won't be anywhere near as detailed as the welcome video for the last unit that you did, because really I've spent quite a lot of time explaining the learning guide to you, and I don't think I need to do that this time. I really just want to talk about what the unit's about. So the unit really focuses on normal antenatal, labour, birth, postnatal care of the woman and also of the neonate. So all those normal things that you think about, that's what this unit is about. And gives you a really good foundation for next semester, where you're going to learn about more complex issues that you might be exposed to. At the same time, you're going to undertake the unit Midwifery Practice 1. So if you want to compare the two units, this unit is very much focused on the theory and any research that's been done into the area of pregnancy, birth and postnatal. And the other unit, which Leanne Look will be teaching, is very much focused on you developing the skills necessary to provide care for women and babies during pregnancy, labour, birth and the postnatal period. And so in this unit, if you'll notice, it's a 20 credit point unit, which basically indicates that there's quite a lot of content in the unit, and that also means that if you have 20 credit points, the thought is that you're going to spend approximately 20 hours a week in some form of endeavours related to that subject. So for example, you've got a 3-hour online lecture every week. That would eat into your 20 hours. You come to university and you attend a 3-hour tutorial. So 6 hours of your time have gone there. So even though a lecture is online for 3 hours, to really fully understand it, do all the little workings, little exercises that might be given to you, read the suggested readings, and then on top of that do things like prepare for assignments and exams, you'll easily spend 20 hours a week on the unit. For some of you, you can do it in less, but for others of you, I think you do need to think that you need to put that much time aside. It's the unit very much is designed around the fact that you will every week look at your lectures online. So teaching has changed quite a lot in the course. Historically, we used to not have any online content, and you would come along every week and have sort of a 2-hour lecture, 1-hour tutorial. But it meant that it was very much lecturer driven, and that you were often passive recipients and didn't overly participate. So now all that theory you should have learned prior to the tutorial, and the tutorial really isn't a session for me to come along and teach you new content. It really is where we consolidate that knowledge that you learnt from your lecture, and that might be through group work or case studies or other activities. Somebody just walked past my window, so that was a bit distracting. Having been students previously, I think you all know how frustrating it is to know that you've got to do pre-reading and be prepared for a lecture and turn up, be put into groups and be with students who have made no effort to pre-read or to study, and you feel like you're carrying them. Well, that's not fair, and that's not what I want. There is a lot of content to learn in this unit, and you can't get away with not looking at your lectures. So the lecture tutorial, very much is designed around just consolidating that knowledge. There are some topics, I'll admit, that we won't cover in the online lecture. We will just address for the first time in the tutorial, just because I think that some things are just more interesting to present that way, and that's fine. But I don't want you to come to the tutorial thinking that you're going to learn in the tutorial something that you didn't bother to learn on your online lecture. So as I said, lectures are classed as 3 hours online every week, and they're not just straight lectures. There are little video clips that I might suggest you look at, activities to do, papers to read, things like that, and they all just help build that knowledge. The tutorials are student driven, they're not meant to be lecturer driven, and I really want you to make the most of that 3 hours. I'll say it now, I almost every week do not want the same people sitting next to each other, so I'm going to mix it up, just so you know. I will do that, and I just think it'll provide a much more stimulating semester for you to be meeting new people, working in different groups, and meeting people who are at different hospitals who might do something slightly differently. And it takes away that tendency sometimes to be overly chummy with your mates and see the tutorial as a time to tune out, talk about the latest movie, and forget really why you're there. So just putting it out there, that's what's going to happen. If you look at your learning guide, which I've got on my screen now, so if I look a bit strange, it's because I'm just sort of going through it. Every unit that you do will have things like a handbook summary of the unit, and we went through all this before. And for this unit, as with every other unit, there are learning outcomes, so it would be good for you to look at the learning outcomes to know what's expected of you during this unit. So there are 8 learning outcomes. I think they're fairly self-explanatory, so I won't go through those. We also say the types of learning activities that we're going to do in this unit. And also then we move on to assessment, and this is always a thing that you worry about. Now, I will touch on things here, but I want you to know that I will go into these in much more detail when we're in the classroom next week, and so I don't want you to sort of feel agitated. Just so you know, normally you would be having your lecture for this unit on a Wednesday in the morning between 9 and 12. But next week I'm going to have the session on Thursday morning. And the reason I've done that is you are at university all week next week, and use of the clinical practice unit, the lab area, is quite limited next week. So I want to take advantage of you being able to be in the lab all day on the Wednesday with Leanne and Beth, who you'll meet next week. And so for that reason, because I don't need the CPU for what I do, we will have our session on the Thursday. It's not going to make any difference to really what happens next week. I just want you to know that that's when we're going to do our session. Everything is pretty compulsory next week, so you've got to be here in any case, so you can't really opt out of things. Then I will go through the unit with you, and particularly assessment. But just so you know, there are 3 forms of assessment. One is a written assignment. It's an educational task. You need to write an information for, or to develop the background material behind an information session for an antenatal class. Then you've got a group presentation, and then you've got a exam in the exam period. And again, with one of the units you did last semester, you do have to pass the exam to pass the unit. Attendance in this unit I always find a little bit difficult, so I've put attendance down to be 80%. And the reason I've done that is because, as you're all aware, a lot of you are going to start employment in your hospitals, and there's almost always a clash between the day where you're expected to go to the hospital and then and it's a university day. So I just want to advise you now that if you've got an orientation day at the hospital, you must attend that. So most of you will miss at least one day of university due to your orientation, and I understand that. That's why I don't have 100% attendance. Next semester, where there isn't expectation, we will have 100% attendance on campus. You will need to submit your assignments through Turnitin, and I know that you will have had a session with the librarian in relation to that, and you were using the computer to submit work to Athena in the last unit. So my assumption is you've all sort of got a command of how Turnitin works, but if you've got problems, there are online tutorials that you can go to, so don't panic. The great thing about Turnitin is that it gives you the opportunity to submit your work and have a look at it before the submission date and make sure that there are, for example, examples of plagiarism that you might need to work on, and you can work on that and then submit by the due date. And also it means that you don't need to hand in a hard copy of your assignment, so that's quite useful. During the weekly 3-hour sessions that we have, I found it useful in the past, and I'll continue to do it in this semester as well, is that I will generate a sort of weekly self-test quiz for you, and it's an oversight of the content of the lecture from that week, and it's just questions that I think you should be able to answer in relation to that week's content. So if you look at that and you're able to answer every question easily, well, you're obviously on track with your learning. If you have a look at it and you're really struggling to answer the questions, then you need to have a look at how you're studying. Maybe you're not dedicating enough time, or maybe you just need to have a method of studying that's more effective. Either way, it will give you a good indication of how you're going. The semester is a long semester. It's 14 weeks long. Of those, you'll be on campus 13 weeks, and there is an intra-session break, and that's scheduled between the 11th and 15th of April, and you won't be on campus that week. Now, some of you may remember from your bachelor days that when there were lots of public holidays around, so for example around Easter, that you might have had online learning at that time. But this will not occur for you, because the Easter and Anzac Day will not affect your day at university. So sadly for you, you'll be coming every week. Book-wise, you will need to buy another book that's been ordered, and it's by Davies and MacDonald, and it's called Examiners and Neonate, and it will definitely be needed to supplement your learning in relation to neonatal care, and that's been ordered and should be available for you in the bookshop. Really, you know, I don't think I need to say much more, because I'm going to see you all next week. So till next week, I'll sign off.